You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast, your local source for upcoming events, hot new listings, and bite-sized interviews with business and community leaders. Here's your host, Brent Jones.
Hey, good morning and welcome. You are listening to Season 4, Episode 7 of the Fort Erie Podcast. It is Tuesday, October 26th, 2021, and I'm your host, Brent Jones. Today, my guest is going to be John Mtshede, Executive Director of Matthew House here in Fort Erie. But first, let me say a quick congratulations to the two most recent winners of my Lucky Strikes gift certificate giveaway this fall. As most of you know who regularly listen to this show, I am giving away a $50 gift certificate to go bowling at Lucky Strikes every week with each new episode of the Fort Erie Podcast. The two most recent winners were Deborah Phelps and Fran Hill, both of which who now have a $50 gift certificate waiting to be picked up at my office. If you would like to enter this week's giveaway to win $50 to Lucky Strikes, please click the link below this episode to access the show notes, scroll down the show notes page, and leave me a comment. Comment on anything you like. My favorite comment for the week will win a $50 gift certificate. Here's what's making news in Fort Erie this week. So first headline, proposed Crystal Beach microbrewery and in a step closer to reality. Basically, town politicians have approved the necessary zoning changes that would allow this project to move forward. So proponents for this project have asked for the zoning changes that will allow for a 4-story, 28-room inn to be built at 4002 Erie Road. The current zoning bylaw for the area would only permit 3 stories, so an exemption was needed to accommodate this project's height. And the other news story I wanted to touch on this week is that the town has approved penalties for short-term rental violations. So short-term rental owners found to be in violation of various town regulations could face fines of anywhere from $75 right up to $1,000, all depending on the infraction. Fines can be levied for a whole bunch of different reasons. For example, failure to display a short-term rental license is a $75 fine. Operating without a license is a $1,000 fine. Further fines could be levied for fire code violations as well. To get links to either of these stories, please check out the show notes below this episode. And for this week's hot new listing, I wanted to mention 313 Bowen Road here in Fort Erie. That property was listed by me, by yours truly, Brent Jones with Remax Niagara Realty. The property just hit the market yesterday. It is a 3-bedroom family home, 2 full bathrooms in Fort Erie's north end, a fully finished basement with a walkout to the backyard, and a huge rec room with a fireplace. The backyard is fully fenced, so ideal for pets, for small kids. Newer shingles, newer electrical panel, newer furnace, listed at $499.9. You can call or connect with me for details or to book a private viewing. And as a quick reminder, everyone who buys or sells residential real estate in Niagara region with me this fall goes into a draw to win a $3,000 vacation package from Sell Off Vacations come January. Now, let's see what's on your mind this week. Fort Erie, checking in with the Fort Erie Questions and Answers Facebook group. Demi says, my son starts school at Our Lady of Victory in a week or so, senior kindergarten. I'm having a hard time finding shirts that match the dress code, plain white or blue dress shirt or t-shirt with a collar. So there were quite a few different answers here from other parents. Some very generous people around town offered to donate shirts they had that maybe their own kids had grown out of. There were a number of mentions of different thrift shops around town. But the most common local response that I saw to purchase shirts that would meet the dress code were from Canadian Landmark Embroidery on Central Avenue. Then Rebecca asks, just wondering where I can get photocopies made. And again, there were a number of great answers around town. People mentioned different Avondale locations, Beatty's Basics on Garrison Road, as well as the Fort Erie Public Library can do photocopies as well. All right, so I think that covers what's going on this week in Fort Erie. Now on to my interview with John Mtshede. All right, folks, welcome back. I am joined now by John Mtshede, Executive Director of Matthew House Refugee Ministry of Fort Erie. John, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure to be here.
Well, it's always great talking to you. And let me start first by asking you, what makes Fort Erie such a great place to live and work? Or in your case, what you're doing, potentially to relocate?
Yeah, Fort Erie is just a small little town with a community which is a loving community. I can say it's a loving community and welcoming community.
Great. Well, let's talk about Matthew House specifically, because I think most people around town certainly know where the Matthew House is. But let's talk maybe a little bit more about who is it for and kind of what is it all about.
Yeah, Matthew House, it's an organization, a not-for-profit organization, which is helping refugees, with housing. Shelter housing and transitional housing. And we also help locals, especially broken families and homeless people with emergency shelter and transitional housing.
And I believe just from following some of the things you're up to online, I mean, there's a garden, there's some other community involvement type things that you're doing.
Yes, yeah, we started a community garden last year, and this year as well. It has been a success. We're trying to involve the community into gardening. We have quite a number of projects, especially for seniors as well.
Do you find that Fort Erie is welcoming to newcomers in a general sense? And is there anything you feel we could be doing as a town to maybe be more tolerant or more accepting?
In my own experience, I find this city very welcoming to newcomers. Great. And the city itself, the town of Fort Erie, also it's welcoming. We have had some meetings with the mayor and other people in the town. I can attest that we have one of the greatest mayors who listens, who gives you time to listen to you and tries to find solutions for whatever problems might be.
Well, that's certainly Mr. Redekop's reputation, absolutely. And the next time you're having a chat with him, John, maybe let him know that I'd love to have him on the podcast.
I will.
I'd love to have him as a guest. Now, do you think there are any initiatives or any plans that the town may be working on, or anything that could be done to better support you in the work you're doing with Matthew House?
Yeah, like I mentioned, the mayor, we just invited him to get some of his input. Matthew House, at the moment, we bought a stand in 2019. This stand is earmarked for multiple housing. Mm-hmm. We want to build affordable housing units on this stand. Right. And that's what we are working on. And we're looking for public support and everybody's support. We want, housing, as you know, it's a problem in Canada in general. So Matthew House wants to be a solution in those issues.
Well, I think that leads nicely into my next question, because, of course, I'm going to put links to sort of everything that Matthew House is up to in the show notes below this episode. But could you take a minute to tell listeners maybe how they could either get more involved with Matthew House, or even how they could make a donation? Like, how could people around town help?
Yeah, people around town, they can help in so many ways. They can donate on monetary terms, like what we are looking at right now to build these affordable housing units. We need money to do that. And they can donate through Canada Helps on our website, matthewhouseforterie.com. And they can find a Canada Helps button, and they can donate there. They can drop a check at Matthew House. Nobody should sleep outside. Right. We're trying to find a solution for people who are homeless and people who do not have a place to call home. So that is our goal, is really to make sure that nobody sleeps outside.
Okay. I got you. And I guess just to conclude things today, John, I wanted to ask you, what are some, if there are any, but what are some common misconceptions that people have about either refugee claimants or about the process of seeking asylum within Canada? Are there any misconceptions that people have?
Yes, there are a lot of misconceptions, but as people learn about, the people themselves, they tend to, have a changed attitude towards refugees. People sometimes see refugees as people who are just coming here to abuse the system or just to take our jobs and things like that. Mm-hmm. I came into this country as a refugee, and I'm now a citizen, and I'm ready to defend this country to its core. I love this country, and I'm a contributing citizen to the economy of this country. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I'm doing here at Matthew House with the newcomers. We orient them to the Canadian culture, to the Canadian type of living. And we stress so much that we need them to be productive. We don't need them to stay on the system. They have to find a job and work. And most refugees, they come here, they are willing to work straight away. And thanks to local companies which are hiring refugees, and they can attest to that the refugees are hardworking people.
Absolutely. Well, John, I want to thank you for everything that you do in our community here, everything you do for refugees, and also thank you for being part of the show today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Let's wrap up today's episode by having a look at a few community events coming up this week. And it's hard to believe that we're already, Halloween is just about upon us. So here's what's coming up. This weekend, you can catch live music this Saturday afternoon at Southside's Patio Bar and Grill. This is actually a celebration of life honoring Norm Sills. And you can find details about this event and each event I talk about in the show notes below this episode. If you are feeling in the Halloween spirit this Saturday, head on over to Sneakers in Crystal Beach. Sneakers will be hosting a Halloween bash and costume contest, this Saturday evening. It starts at 7:00 p.m., sort of across town at the other end of town. You can catch a different Halloween party this Saturday at 8 p.m. That's happening at The Place on Garrison Road. And then finally, this Sunday, I want to mention Sunday, October 31st is the final day of registration for the 3-on-3 Indoor Soccer Champions League. This is, of course, all hosted and put together by the Greater Fort Erie Youth Soccer Club. Again, see the links in the show notes below this episode for more information on any of these events. And of course, for those of you who are heading out trick-or-treating this weekend, and I'm guessing those of you listening to this show, I'm guessing it's probably the parents listening and not the kids. But if you're heading out with your young ones this weekend to go trick-or-treating, stay safe, stay warm. And if there's any possibility at all, try to stay dry. I don't know why it seems to rain every time the kids are going to go out trick-or-treating. Join me next week for a brand new episode of the Fort Erie Podcast. My guest will be Gary O'Brien, fellow realtor, and of course, owner and operator of Trailside Bar and Grill in Ridgeway. We're going to have a great chat next week. So long and take care for now.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones, a sales representative with RE/MAX Niagara Realty Limited Brokerage. Follow @BuyWithBrent on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates. Subscribe to the Fort Erie Podcast on popular platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and catch a new bite-sized episode every week. Until next time.